right here, the area of the Coliseum, man, where my dad used to have the wrestling. I never, ever in my dreams did I expect to reach where I'm at today. Enjoy the ride as long as you can, because it's not going to be there forever. But, you know, I shouldn't be worrying about things that aren't happening yet. Heck, I haven't even hit the top of the mountain yet.
When I was born, I came out of my mom. I drop-kicked the doctor. That's right.
Here's the fourth Guerrero brother. His name is Eddie. I've had a chance to see him, and he's coming along.
His whole family were just top-notch workers, but I think Eddie may have been the best of all of them.
What fight?
His whole family were just top-notch workers, but I think Eddie may have been the best of all of them.
What fight? What determination in this Eddie Guerrero?
Eddie was just doing groundbreaking stuff.
Want some Latino heat?
He was just such a different hero for the culture.
It wasn't just Latinos who loved him. Everyone did.
Eddie Guerrero did the unthinkable!
You're doing these great things in wrestling, and it's great, but after you've done it, there's nothing to fill you.
There was like two Eddie Guerreros.
It's a little snowball, and before you know it, it's an avalanche.
It's very easy to fall into any type of abuse.
I lost my wife, I lost my kids, I lost my spirit.
He never had his eyes open to how close he was to death.
A stunning tragedy strikes the world of wrestling.
Couldn't believe that this was really happening.
Driving around the neighborhood, El Paso, brings back a lot of memories. My dad had this Pinto, and he used to give me a ride every day to school, and I didn't want him to give me a ride. And he said, no, I'll drive you. Dad, you don't have to. I said, no, son, I'll drive you. I said, all right, Dad, you know. So we'd get in the car, and we'd be cruising. He'd be going 10 miles an hour. I'd be crouched down really, really low in the seat, like I didn't want nobody to see me, you know. And my dad knew what he was doing. He'd do it on purpose. He was revving me, you know. Describing myself as a kid, I was a spoiled brat running around El Paso. You know, I was Gory Guerrero's son. Or Chavo's younger brother, or Mondo's younger brother. You know, it was one of the Guerreros.
Eddie is my baby, my husband, and all his brothers and my daughters. We are a wrestling family.
My dad was a legend, you know, and I'm not just saying that because he's my dad. He was a world champion in Mexico. He was a promoter of wrestling in Ciudad Juarez and in El Paso for many years. I used to run around with my dad, you know, in the dressing room when he was a promoter. And as I got bigger, you know, idolizing my dad, I wanted to be just like him.
He is always like my husband, wrestling and the man.
Other kids had jungle gyms in their backyards. We grew up with a wrestling ring in our backyard. You know, we'd put covers over the ropes, and I'd camp out at night.
He wanted to be like his brothers, wanted to be part of the wrestling world, and he would just go in there and sure, we would teach him everything.
You know, we were taught at an early age how to fall, how to roll. To us, it was playing, but to them, they were teaching us.
It was sometime around junior high. You know, there was a buzz that this kid, you know, this scrawny little kid was related to the wrestling Guerreros. Eddie Guerrero of the great Guerrero family.
Hector, Mondo, and Chavo, the Guerrero brothers.
Hard to live under the shadow of a father, under the shadow of your own brothers, and Eddie's right in the middle of it.
I met Eddie when I joined the wrestling team at Thomas Jefferson High School. The coach was taking roll call. And all of a sudden he calls out Eddie Guerrero. Guerrero. So I'm just like, And of course, after practice, I walked up to him and I asked him, hey, is by chance Chavo Guerrero relative of yours?
Chavo Guerrero.
He says, yeah, that's my brother. Eddie would, work out with his brothers and roll around and stuff like that whenever he could. I said, well, fantastic. Sign me up.
Oh, my name is
Eddie Guerrero. We would meet at Eddie's house about 8 o'clock in the morning. Anytime we got into the ring, we didn't see that he was slacking off or being lazy, nothing to that effect. No, he was go, 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 go.
First, I will just demonstrate right here what's called a standing drop kick. I'll jump up with both legs and hit him on the chest and hopefully knock him down. Okay? Ready, Hector? Yeah. Okay. When you come in from here, come down here, come back here. Okay, now the purpose of it here, this is just a setup.
Chavo, whenever he was in town, he would train with us, and show us a few things. But, he was a perfectionist. It was hard on Eddie. People think, oh, Eddie had it easy. He was a Guerrero. No, that's not true. He had that reputation to uphold.
I remember my dad, he used to watch me wrestle, and I'd just see him shake his head like this. And I knew I was doing something wrong, and then I tense up.
My husband.
This was my dad's ring. This is Hector's ring now. I just get the pleasure of coming in and jumping in, and it makes me feel good. My dad was... Hector's got the setup just almost like I did back home,
Hey, and you know what? That's still the original board. I haven't changed it. It is the original board.
So where my weightlifting career started in the backyard.
Nothing fancy about it.
And sealed off on it. It makes me feel in El Paso for many years. It makes me feel a little guilty. In El Paso for many years. And happy. Guilty that I didn't, continue it like this. But it makes me feel happy that Hector's done it, It's like my dad. It's like my dad's here right now, Feels good. And as I got bigger, idolizing my dad. I think the only thing that, if you want to say a negative was the pressure that I put on myself when it came down to athletics, especially in wrestling, living up to the name and being watched all the time. Always felt like I was under a microscope.
Gory could see that Eddie was ready. And Eddie, he was beating with confidence. He was ready to go.
You've seen our workout, and now as you see our wrestling attire, we're getting ready for a match.
As soon as we graduated high school, a couple of years after that, he was already headlining the matches in Juarez,
I got $100 for my first match because of my dad's name. The place sold out.
And of course, being that he was a young Guerrero, he had to prove his worth.
And they had me in the main event, and the other boys didn't feel I deserved it, and they were right.
And a lot of the times, he was beat up substantially. They were making him pay his dues.
Basically, each match would turn out to be in a fist fight.
He'd come back and his chest was purple, from all the slaps that he had received.
Having a Guerrero name is a plus and a negative at the same time. It's a plus because you get a lot of opportunities a lot quicker. But at the same time, there was no way I could live up to it because I didn't have the time or experience.
I met him at a nightclub, and my best friend had pointed out to me that this, that's Eddie over there. And I kind of looked at him, and I said, he's kind of cute. He was wrestling on Thursdays and Sundays, and I was still working at the time, so I would just go on Sundays to see him wrestle. And it was quite an adventure. He was just starting out, but to me, he was already a star. He has a great heart, which made me fall in love with him.
Vicky's tremendous. You know, as a matter of fact, my dad really liked her, you know.
When I met his dad, he was very sick at the time. So I got his soft heart. Our wedding, that was really hard. His dad passed away that Tuesday before we got married, and we buried him on Friday. And then we had the wedding on Saturday, and his dad's wishes were, please, you know, go ahead and get married.
You know, in my life, you know, I always wanted to be like my dad. I never got to see my dad in his prime. You know, I saw him wrestle later on as he was older. I wanted to be that person that I never saw. That was my focus. We're spotlighted now.
When they split the brands, there were a lot of skeptics of the fact that SmackDown couldn't stand on its own 2 feet. And now that we're celebrating 1,000 episodes of this show and it continues to be a wonderful standalone brand, that's because of Eddie Guerrero.
He was the SmackDown locker room. He's one of the top entertainers. He's one of the best guys who will ever grace that ring.
I lie, I cheat, I steal!
If you're gonna build a Mount Rushmore for SmackDown, the first person's face that goes up there is Eddie Guerrero.
When I got to WWE, yeah, there was that sense. I've arrived. You know, this is it. And I was so determined to show Vince I had potential.
I think that was really important for Eddie to prove to himself and to everyone else that, you know, the love of wrestling and the love of what he did just resonated.
At this point in my career, you know, it was going great. Opportunities happened that I had never dreamed about. How did it go sour? Jeez.
You never think that, you know, WWE was going to fire him. I think Eddie kind of played with that, you know, quite a bit with throughout his days of drug abuse and using alcohol. And then, you know, when the day came that, you know, they did fire him and he had to actually work from the bottom up, you know, go through rehab, and he had to learn that he had to do it for himself and not for everybody else to be clean and sober.
It was my fault. Nobody's fault but my own. I think I really had to prove myself. You know, WWE, they know what's going on. And I did a lot of independent work, and I guess they were watching. And we talked, and they took me back. They gave me another opportunity.
That's Eddie Guerrero! That's Ric Flair's apparently signing Eddie Guerrero! And Guerrero making his presence felt here with the Intercontinental Champion.
And I think when WWE had confidence in him again, that he could be employed and he could work again and still take care of himself, he was very grateful and humbled about it.
I had a lot of doubts about myself and about going back. But as far as them wanting me, I always kind of knew in my heart that I might have a second chance.
It was clever. It was too clever not to. This is Hector's rematch. Appreciate it.
Ladies and gentlemen, my newly acquired raw talent, Latino Heat, Eddie Guerrero!
We've got Latino Heat, Eddie Guerrero!
Something about him that 1 second could be so lovable and so funny, and the next second could just be so despicable and hateful. He could flip that switch like nobody I've ever seen.
What the hell is this all about?
It was definitely
the show to go on, and that's what we're going to try to do here tonight.
Even in the wake of Eddie Guerrero's death, wrestlers said the show must go on so they could pay tribute to one of the most popular stars in the business.
I walked into the arena and I saw all these signs that said, "Rest in peace, Eddie." And as a kid, it didn't quite hit me. I just was a little confused.
You know, there was a lot of times in the restaurants, you know, the waiters would come up to me and say, you know, we're not giving him any more liquor. You know, and there was times that at night when it was really bad, I took the kids and we went to hotels because he was just a monster. It was unbearable.
You know, now that I realize it too, you know, it was even dangerous for the girls to be in that atmosphere.
You always think it can't happen to me. I'm married to Eddie Guerrero. You know, we have the house with the boat, the pool table, and the cars. This can't happen to us.
Eddie put on a great mask at times. There were demons that would manifest themselves every once in a while.
We were at a TV in Minneapolis. I remember Eddie walking in, coming down the hallway, but nobody was home.
Viva la raza! I lie, I cheat, I steal.
Eddie went in the dressing room and sat in the corner and just wasn't there.
I showed up to work, messed up, you know. They were gracious enough to send me to rehab. And I went, you know, I went because that was the only way to keep my job. You know, I didn't want to go.
I didn't want to be with him anymore. He was telling me that he really wanted to try, but by that time I had given up on all the promises that he had given me about saying that he wanted to get sober, he wanted to have a better life, he didn't want to hurt me and the girls anymore. But I was so discouraged, I'm like, I don't believe you. When he was in rehab, I wrote him a letter asking for the divorce.
When you see the audience care about somebody, when you're watching at home, you're going to care more about them too. EC was the best at that. Like, the crowd was a star of its own.
Terry Funk versus Cactus Jack for the first time in history. This one ought to be a classic.
Terry and I had a match, and it was fairly short, ended with a disqualification when the Public Enemy came running in. And I said to the audience, give me a chair. First there was one, then there was two.
Oh my God!
I'm not exaggerating when I say it was raining chairs.
Turn around and catch one over there, and all of a sudden, wham! One of them hit me right in the back and knocked me out. Oh, just some crazy.
You know, Eddie at home was very quiet. I mean, and of course, with me and the girls, we always, you know, had family day where it was movies and, you know, eat sushi and make pellets on the floor. And, you know, he would watch all the Disney movies for the girls that they wanted until they fell asleep. He was at home and he liked to relax and kind of be quiet and just de-stress from the road. And then as soon as that red light comes on the camera and he gets into the doors of the arena, turns into this other person, and it's because he loved what he did so much, and he was so happy at work. You know, he was happy at home, don't get me wrong, but there was something about when he walked into that arena and it was, you know, showtime. He was in love.
Eddie Guerrero has passed away. Eddie was in the prime of his life, 38 years old, in the prime of his career.
Legal.
ECW finally reached their goal, and Paul Heyman gave the credit to the fans.
I wanted an audience that was going to be proud to be ECW fans, and damn it, I had that. Tonight we have a chance to say, yeah, you're right. We're too extreme. We're too full of our own. Or we have a chance to say, hey, you're wrong. We're right, because you have all made it to the dance. Because believe me, this is the dance. Start the show.
And now that we're celebrating 1,000 episodes of this show and it continues to be a wonderful standalone brand, that's because of Eddie Guerrero.
He was the SmackDown locker room. He's one of the top entertainers, one of the best guys who will ever grace that ring.
I lie, I cheat, I steal.
If you're gonna build a Mount Rushmore for SmackDown, the first person's face that comes up there is Eddie Guerrero.
When I got to WWE, yeah, there was that sense. I've arrived. You know, this is it. And I was so determined to show Vince I had potential.
I think that was really important for Eddie to prove to himself and to everyone else that, you know, the love of wrestling and the love of what he did just resonated